I remember December 1996. It was winter in Oregon, or at least close to winter in Oregon, and I was just on the edge of my seat every day waiting for Beavis and Butthead Do America to come out. I believe it was December 6th, 1996. If I recall, that was the release date. And I remember going to Target the night before and for some reason finding the Beavis and Butthead script book sitting there on the shelf. And I bought it. The very first screenplay I ever read. I took it home, I blazed through it in one go. I was laughing so hard, I was crying, and I still could not wait to go see this movie on the big screen the next afternoon once I got out of school. That movie and that screenplay helped fuel my desire to want to get into Hollywood, fuel my desire to want to write movies, and learning the process by reading Mike Judge's words. I've always adored that movie. Every bit of it, from the casting to the animation to the soundtrack to everything. And so when Mike Judge is saying here that he has an idea for a Beavis and Butthead movie, I at no point in time am I like, don't fund this. No, you make this movie. All right, like you do a Kickstarter like Veronica Mars and Super Troopers 2. You do that. You make it. You make it because I want it, and I will throw down money for it. I want to see this. I think it would be great. Beavis and Butthead came back in 2011 for a shorter run. It was still pretty good, but not as good as the original. And I think it's just because times have changed. But Beavis and Butthead in and of itself is an encapsulation of the early 90s, especially when it comes to crude television or animation on television. This predated South Park, and it got in a lot more trouble than South Park, I believe. They did a lot. I mean, this is one of the reasons why South Park is on at 10 p.m. Beavis and Butthead is that reason. This is a fantastic series and one that I still want to see live on. And as Silicon Valley nears its close, I'd like to see Mike Judge make a run at this again, or King of the Hill, if I'm being fair. I would take either or, but I would really, really, really love to see what he does with another Beavis and Butthead. Now, according to Mike Judge here, he says that he says they, I'm assuming Hollywood, they seem to be still interested in that. I've got some ideas. I think it would have to be something that makes it relevant today. I think I might have figured out a way to do that. I would probably direct it. Now, that's not a lot to say about Beavis and Butthead, a sequel. Right? It's not a lot to say about it, but it is definitely something. Mike Judge is really good at having his fingers not only on the pulse of where things are pop culture wise, but really up its butt and to the left. You know, he really got his fingers on the prostate. He gets it in a way that I don't think a lot of people do. The way that he tackled office comedy and Office Space and what he viewed as a completely idiotic future with Idiocracy. Unfortunately, Extract wasn't as good, but he had a lot to live up to, and it just wasn't as good of a film as it could have been. But the other two, and three, if you count Beavis and Butthead Do America, are classics in their own right, and ones that a lot of people love. Office Space just turned 20 years old back in February. Isn't that weird to think that it's been 20 years and we still can quote that movie? We still quote Idiocracy, even though that is 12 years old now. We can still quote a lot of things Mike Judge has been involved with. The dude is a pure talent. But I wanted to take a look here at some of at least the financials, to determine whether or not it could be done again in today's society. So coming over here to Box Office Mojo, we see, sorry, I was wrong on the release date. It's December 20th, 1996. I thought December 6th. I was off by 2 weeks. It has a domestic gross of $63 million back in 96 on a production budget of $12 million. The movie clearly made profits. And this is coming off of the widest release of 2,417 theaters, and its opening weekend total was $20 million. It already was a profit right off the bat, right in its first week. And even coming over here to Rotten Tomatoes, we can see that the general consensus of it is 72% on Tomatoes. I don't know why that's not considered fresh, but whatever, you know, take that for what you will. The audience score of 69%, that's considered fresh for that, with a critical consensus saying Beavis and Butthead Do America is unabashedly offensive, unapologetically stupid, and unexpectedly funny. But then again, this reads like people who have never, ever, ever seen the show and didn't spend years watching it quoting it, doing the dumb laugh, and absolutely loving the commentary that comes during the music videos. That is something that was missing, I think, from the reboot of the TV show, as well as all of the home video releases that don't have it. I understand for legal reasons. I get the rights issues, but still, those were great for the time. And you know, here it is over 20 years later, 22 years later almost, or 23 years later almost. And it's still a movie that holds a special place in a lot of people's hearts. But I want to take a look at a bit more of Mike Judge. So what we've got here is Extract, right? And this is Extract's critical consensus. You can see the audience score didn't really care for it, but the critics seem to like it a little bit less than Beavis and Butthead, saying it's got some funny moments and several fine performances, but the film feels slighter and more uneven than Mike Judge's previous work. And when it comes to workplace comedy, he was also developing Silicon Valley at the time. And Silicon Valley has become this, I don't know if I necessarily want to call it like a cultural thing, but it feels like a cultural thing because Silicon Valley is just one of those shows that really gets where we are in the tech age. And I think that would be really funny to bring Beavis and Butthead from the early 90s into modern age. And I know he tried in 2011, but things now are so vastly different and they're so vastly ready to be dunked on. I mean, look at Idiocracy here, right? I mean, like even then it's a cult thing, I guess, because the 60% audience score, which doesn't make any sense to me. I think people who rated it low don't get it, if I'm being fair, but the critics really liked it. And it says here that Idiocracy delivers with the hilarity and biting satire that could only come from Mike Judge. And it's still to this, it's an instant classic. I was at 7-Eleven last night and I'm talking with the lady there. And I said, you notice how no one ever does movie quotes these days? And then she just goes, Brondo's got what plants crave. And I'm all like, I threw like, hey, do you want to go to Starbucks line, or welcome to Costco, I love you, or go, can't talk baitin', or whatever the hell it was, all the little lines from Idiocracy. And yet here it is only with a 60% audience score, which does make very little sense to me. But again, don't ever really pay attention to that specifically as anything more than something you take with a grain of salt. But we can see here that it's still a classic. Then you got Office Space, clearly his best work according to critics and according to the audience score, saying Mike Judge lampoons the office grind with his inspired mix of sharp dialogue and witty one-liners. 80% tomato meter and a 93% audience score. This is clearly his magnum opus in regards to critical and audience score results. But if you want my honest opinion, Idiocracy came out of nowhere and just took over. I was in college when Idiocracy came out. I was in high school when Office Space came out. I was in high school when Beavis and Butthead Do America came out. And when I was in college and Idiocracy dropped, everyone went to go see it. Like it hit home video, but everyone was like, wait, Mike Judge comedy? Oh man, they're all over that. Kids of the 90s love this stuff. And I think kids of the 90s, kids of the 80s, those who grew up in that time frame that are at this point more or less at that age where they have kids themselves that might be of the same age they were when Beavis and Butthead came out, might be wanting that thing to maybe connect them. I used to watch Beavis and Butthead with my stepdad. We used to watch it over dinner until that kid ended up burning his house down and killing his sister, and then MTV freaked out and moved it to 10 p.m. But still, the point is that it was a staple in my household. And not just mine, but many, many, many other people. So if Mike Judge is looking to remake Beavis and Butthead, bring it into the updated world, bring it into now with a new movie, I cannot support it enough. And I am curious to know your thoughts and your opinions on this. Is this something you want to see, something you don't want to see? I want to hear it. Let me know down in the comments. If you made it this far, go ahead and slap a like on this video. Let's try to get it up to, let's say, 250 likes. I think that's reasonable. I, again, appreciate everyone watching, liking, commenting, subscribing, and I will talk to you guys later. Have yourself a fantastic day, and peace out.